Africa. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. Africa, tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. America, tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze.
You are listening to African Father in America podcast by Simon Javan Okello, live from Seattle, Washington, USA.
Thank you so much for joining us for today's session of the Daily African Proverbs. My name is Simon Javan Okello. I suspect that I had, my YouTube channel on my screen. That's why you could hear the introduction going on and also the live stream also going on at the same time. My apologies. But today is Thursday, and as usual, for those of you who are familiar with the Daily African Proverbs, every Thursday we have a special guest, and our wonderful guest is here with me, Gogo Rutendo Ngara, joining us from South Africa. And we are here for the Daily African Proverbs, where our hope, especially today, is to talk about, how life has to go on despite what happens. So today we are going to talk about, life motivation and life philosophy, life quotes, life purpose, and just how this particular African proverb from Angola that says, you cannot do without water, even if it drowned your child. You cannot do without water, even if it drowned your child. That is going to be the center of our conversation today. And so thank you for all our amazing friends and family who are joining us on YouTube. I see that M. Joel is there already. Thank you so much. And to everyone who is with us on Clubhouse, Bibi, Thandi Sizwe, and the amazing Mala Pronoun is here with us. Thank you so much. I'm going to just pin this proverb at the top of the room here in a moment before I bring Gogo to say hello to you. And also I want to urge you, if you are joining us and you are on the, on YouTube, I want to urge you to share this the link to this live stream with your community members. If you are joining us and you are on Clubhouse, please share this link within Clubhouse and outside of Clubhouse, and feel free to also clip this conversation and share it on Twitter, and we will be able to amplify it over there. Now I want to come to you, Gogo. Just share with us how you are doing, and also share with us what today's proverb means to you. For those who are meeting Gogo for the first time, Gogo is someone that I consider a friend now, but she's a revered spiritual leader and someone who has experience and, a knowledge in different spiritual backgrounds, particularly African spirituality. And she's also involved with amazing work in terms of, community building and non-profit organizations that she's involved with. Just tighten your seatbelt and be ready for an amazing conversation today for the Daily African Proverbs. Gogo, share with us how you're doing and also what today's proverb from Angola. The proverb says, you cannot do without water, even if it drowned your child. What does this mean to you, Gogo?
Hi, Simon. It's such a pleasure to be with you again today here on this Thursday. And it's a sunny day here in South Africa. Where I am in Johannesburg, so I'm soaking in the sun's rays. And this is the second time you've challenged me with a proverb from Angola. And earlier you were saying that Angola is quite popular. And the last time you challenged me with a proverb from Angola, it was water-based. The proverb was, it is the voyage and not the ship that matters. And so again, today you have brought me a proverb from Angola that's linked to water. And so I've been reflecting on this and said, why is this? And I figured, okay, Angola, what is it about Angola? And in my reflections, I figured that maybe it is the spirit of Queen Nzinga. that is seeking to be heard through the waters that are linked, obviously, with Angola. And as I've been reflecting, we're now in a new month, well, according to the Gregorian calendar, in March. But a few hours ago, just less than 24 hours ago, we came into a new moon cycle. So we're in a new moon today. And in the Kemetic or Syrian cosmology, this is the new moon of Sebek or Anpu or Apot. And this is the opener of the way. This is the messenger of the gods. This is the embalmer. This is the communicator. But it's also the trickster. So it is a fascinating, moon cycle that we're in now. And but if we go back to the Gregorian calendar, we have just ended the month of February, which is the shortest month of the year. And this is the month that we have ascribed to celebrating or acknowledging Black History Month or African History Month. And but I believe that Black history or African history cannot just be confined to February, because history or our story is every day. And there is another proverb we know which says, until the lions have their historians, tales of the hunt shall always glorify the hunter. And much of the history and hence the ologies of Africa, whether it is the cosmology of Africa, the epistemology of Africa, the ontology of Africa, the teleology, underpinning the history of Africa, has been perverted by the dominant paradigm. And also this proverb that I've just mentioned, describes how these dominant groups have inscribed power through a historical narrative. And this historically has been inherently racist, discriminatory, it has been exclusionary, it has been marginalizing, it has been invalidating, it has been illegitimizing the cradle of humanity, the cradle of life, what we know as Mother Africa. And as I move into our contemporary enunciation from a Pan-African womanist perspective, we cannot just subject ourselves to his story or his story, which is inherently patriarchal as well. But we also need to look at her story or the collective in terms of what our story is. So what is our story from the mouth of the hunter? You've spoken today, we're in Angola. And if we're speaking about Angola, then it's been defined, the history has been largely defined in modern day by Portugal. Portugal, which was the first European country to successfully circumnavigate Africa. And this was led by Bartolomeu Dias and a Portuguese expedition that first crossed the Cape in 1488, past Angola. And unknowingly, it passed after a tremendous storm, which forced the fleet off course and eventually landed in what's here in South Africa is known as Mossel Bay. And this team, while realizing that he had discovered the sea route to the east because they were seeking trade routes, the protests about dwindling supplies by crew members aboard the ships prompted them to turn back towards European shores. And there he erected a cross near Algoa Bay on the way. This is Bartolomeu Dias. And in appreciation of its strategic position as a sea route to the Indies, he also renamed the Cape he had originally named Cabo Tormentoso, which is the Cape of Storms, to Cabo da Boa Esperanza, which is the Cape of Good Hope. And armed with information that he had, Dias brought back to King João II 9 years later. The Vasco da Gama commanded 4 vessels that sailed around the southern tip of Africa and continuing via the east coast to Calcutta, Kerala, and India. And thus the Portuguese established a monopoly over European trade with Asia, and seaborne empire of Portugal began to grow, and Angola was in the midst of all of that. But that is the tale from the hunter's perspective. But what about our story from the mouth of the lion? And we also know that in the late 16th and early 17th centuries, the states on the Central African coast had found their economic power and territorial control threatened by the same Portuguese attempts to establish a colony at Luanda, which is now present-day Angola. And many of these states had become regional powers through trade in African slaves. And it was the growing demand for this human labor in the New World colonies such as Brazil that ultimately led Portugal to seek military and economic control of this region. Now, the old trading partners came under military attack by Portuguese soldiers and indigenous African raiders in search of captives for the slave trade. And the rulers were forced to adapt to these new circumstances or face certain destruction. And yet one leader who proved to be adept at overcoming these difficulties was the Queen of Ndongo, Ana Nzinga. And in 1624, Ana Nzinga inherited the rule of Ndongo. This was a state to the east of Luanda, which was populated primarily by Mbundu peoples. And at that time, the kingdom was under attack from both the Portuguese as well as other African aggressors. And Queen Nzinga realized that to remain viable, Ndongo had to reposition itself as an intermediary rather than a supply zone in the slave trade. And so to achieve this, she allied Ndongo with Portugal and then simultaneously acquired a partner in its fight against, this Portuguese slave trade, and therefore ended this slave trade in the kingdom. But later Portugal betrayed Ndongo, and Ndongo was forced to flee with her people further west, where she founded a new state at Matambo, which is well reached beyond the reach of the Portuguese. And in order to bolster Matamba's martial power, Nzinga offered sanctuary to runaway slaves and Portuguese trained African soldiers. And she therefore adopted a form of military organization known as Quilombo. And this Quilombo was a military organization in which youths renounced family ties and were raised in communality with the militias. But he also fomented rebellion with Ndongo itself, which was now indirectly governed by the Portuguese through a particular puppet ruler. And then she eventually managed to seize Luanda, and through combined forces, was able to drive the Portuguese out of Angola. And therefore, she was able to develop Matamba as a trading power by capitalizing on its position as the gateway to the African interior, the Central African interior. And by the time of her death in 1663, Matamba was a formidable commercial state that dealt with the Portuguese colony on an equal footing. Queen Nzinga. What does this have to do with the proverb about water, I suppose? But it's always important, I think, to link everything to our story. And water, but what about water? And I think our common science, tells us, as we've learned from school, that about 71% of the Earth's surface is water covered. And actually 96.5% of all of this is saline. And saline meaning it is predominantly the waters found in the oceans. But yet water also exists in freshwater sources, such as water vapor, such as in rivers and lakes and ice caps and in glaciers, but also in the ground, in soil moisture and in aquifers, and also even in us within our bodies. And what is really interesting about water is that it is never sitting still. Because of our water cycle, the planet's water supply is constantly moving from one place to another or one form to another. It is inherently mutable. So water is an incredible element in its ability to transform. It is a transformative element. And in the body, where we have between 60 to 70% of water in our bodies, it forms an incredible function. If we look into our proverb today, firstly, we need water to form saliva for digestion. We need water to keep our mucosal membranes moist. We need water to allow our body's cells to grow, to reproduce, and survive. We need water to flush out body waste through urine predominantly. We need water to lubricate our joints. We need water for the brain to manufacture hormones and neurotransmitters. We need water to regulate our body temperature through sweating and respiration. Water acts as a shock absorber for the brain and for the spinal cord. It converts components needed for survival through digestion, and it helps deliver oxygen all over the body. It is the main component of most of our cells. It is a primary element for our survival. And so going back to our proverb, we definitely need water. And if we look in the body, in the body, we realize that 75% of the brain is water, 83% of blood is water, 79% of the heart is water, even 22% of the bones are water. You know, our liver is about 85% water, our kidneys are about 86% water, lymph is about 94% water, you know. So water is a critical element, even just for our survival, as it's itself. And yet, when we look at the distribution of water, both within ourselves and on the planet, you know, we know that 71% of the planet is made up of water. We find, of course, as we've said, that, you know, about 96.5% of this is in the oceans. It's saline, you know, or other saline sources. And interestingly enough, the least amount of water on the planet is within our bodies, at about 0.26% of all of the water in the planet. And yet we need it in harmony with the rest of the planet. The least second least amount of water sources in on the planet is actually in rivers, which make up, you know, 0.49% of water on the planet. And yet, despite this, I often find many answers in rivers. You know, rivers, you know, we know are an incredible definition or incredible metaphor for the mutability of water, for this transformative power of water. Sometimes they're filled from precipitation in the rains above, or sometimes they're filled from recharging the aquifers below, you know, or seepage from the groundwater, you know, into riverbeds. These are fascinating sources of nature. And Africa, as we know it, this cradle of life, this cradle of humanity, you know, is replete with water sources. As I've said before, it's when we look at rivers, it has an incredible network of tributaries, you know, which are associated with the rivers. It has connecting streams, it has lakes, it has springs, it has pools, it has deltas, it has waterfalls, and we have, you know, the oceans and the seas that surround it. It has the longest river in the world, the Nile. It has the deepest river in the world and the most powerful river in the world, the Congo. It is the most unusual river in the world, the Niger. But it also has the body of water that has the single most largest curtain of falling water on the planet, Msiwa Tunya, or what is known as Victoria Falls, which means the smoke that thunder. And it is this river, the Zambezi River, that is linked to our country today, which is Angola. And the Zambezi is the fourth longest river in Africa. It is one of the largest flowing into the Indian Ocean from the continent. This river arises in a black marshy dambo or flay in the dense undulating woodlands of the Miombo tree, 50 kilometers north of Mwinilunga in Zambia. And it bubbles up between the roots of a tree, very close to the border where Zambia, Angola, and the Democratic Republic of Congo meet. And from there, it travels a meandering journey. It creates floodplains. It traverses forests and grasslands. It subsequently alternates its flow between massive rapids and easy flow before cascading down Msiwa Tunya, the smoke that thunders, where Zambia and Zimbabwe meet. Sometimes this river is broad and shallow, and other times it is deep and narrow as it makes its way through two man-made lakes of Kariba and Kabora Bassa, and eventually it splits into a delta as it empties into the warmth of the Indian Ocean. And as it travels between all of these countries, it forms an intricate network of tributaries. It connects streams, it connects lakes, it connects the hot springs in Binga, where the Tonga, our oldest human ancestors, are custodians. It travels through cold springs. It travels through the elephant and baobab-rich mana pools. It travels through the deltas, through other minor waterfalls, and finally into the oceans. And so we see that water is an ultimate source of life. And the rivers, even though they attribute to a tiny portion of water on our planet, are essential for life. And what we see with the Zambezi in its meandering journey through Zambia, Angola, Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, and Mozambique is that it carries with its ebb and its flow the spirit of Ubuntu that we've spoken about. This is also known as Butu here in the south. It's also known as Hunu. It's also known as Ma'at. And this is found in various forms throughout the continent. And so when this river is flowing, it is bringing forth this Ntu. And so when Queen Nzinga was moving up against the Portuguese, she was carrying the Ntu that is inherent in the river of Zambezi. She was a champion of our story, and she was a champion of its foundation of Ubuntu. She was a champion of the warrioress of the waters. So, but what is her tale? And what is the tale not only of the lion, but also of the lioness? Now, I've been speaking about the Zambezi River, and the Zambezi is the common name of this river. But when we go to speak to the Tonga people, and the Tonga people are some of our oldest ancestors, only after the Batwa, or what is known as the San, or the Barwa, here in the southern hemisphere, who are some of our oldest ancestors on Earth, as shown by the Human Genome Project. And these Tonga people will tell us that this name Zambezi is an adulteration, that the true name of this river is Kasamambezi. And Kasamambezi means only he or she who knows can cross. And that means only he or she who understands the principles of water, only he or she who understands the spirits of the water, only he or she who understands all the creatures that are living in the waters, only he or she who understands the rapids and the stills and the whirlpools, only he or she who understands the element and the essence of this river can cross it. And it is only he or she who knows how to interact with the spirit of this water, which is the guardian spirit that is known as the Nyami Nyami. And this is a serpentine spirit. It is often known as a massive river snake, with incredible fangs. And, you'll see this on Tonga art, that they often, depict this as their sacred custodian of this Kasamambezi River. It is the custodian of this mighty waterfall of Musiwatunya. And it is the custodian that brought forth food, and that brought forth all manners, that brought forth life in those that lived across its plains of the Kasamambezi River. And what we understand when we listen to these ancient peoples, our ancient African ancestors, is that when they speak of the river, or even when they speak of the waters associated with the saline, the 96.5% that is our Earth's water sources, we're speaking about the feminine way, the feminine principles. So the spirit of the river is the same spirit that governs ritual, that governs the feminine aspects of dance, of song, and the drum, which is the feminine spirit. And yet this feminine spirit is not monolithic. The spirit that governs the river is not the same as the spirit that governs the oceans or the streams or the pools or the waterfalls. Each of these have their own spirits. Each of these have their own attributes. Each of these have their own wisdoms. Each of these have their own healing power. Each of these have their own feminine spirits, because according to African spirituality, all water sources, be it the springs or the streams or the lakes or the braids or the tributaries or the rivers or the oceans, are feminine. And the feminine principle of the oceans is attributed in deified form to Mother Osset, as we know her in Kemet. She's known as Yemanja amongst the Yoruba. She's named as Dumavati. She's also known as Nomkubulwane here in Southern Africa. And so the spirit or the principle that governs the 96.5% of this ocean is inherently feminine. But this spirit, is not the only one. Even the 2.5% that is attributed to the fresh waters is also attributed to the feminine. And the rivers in particular, are the principles of the energy of the maiden or the girl feminine. She goes by many names. She's Heteru in Kemet. She's Marimba here in the south. She's Oshun. She's Nomdende in the various African cosmologies. She might be known as Aphrodite or Venus or Gangamai or White Tara or Guan Yin, but she's often the one who is the lowest rung of the social stratum. the female girl child. She's the one who seemed to be too whimsical, too immature, too fancy-free. She's the one who has the infinite potential to carry the heat of the sun. And we see this when we look at the etymology in terms of what this feminine spirit is called in Kemet, as Het Heru. Het means house. Heru is the principle of leadership. It is the sun, it is the hero, it is the king, and it is only the feminine that can carry him. So she is the one whose womb will grow to carry the king. She is love, she is joy, she's creativity, she's vision. She's also imagination. She's the principle of innovation. She's the artist, she's the architect, but she's also the engineer. She is the inventor. So this spirit of the river is the one that governs vision, because in the river we can see our own reflection. And in this reflection of ourselves, we see that the moment which is eventually carried to the ocean or to the marshes or the lakes, is carried by the spirit of the river. And at times, our reflection gushes down a mighty waterfall, or at times it seeps down into the bowls of the earth, into the aquifers. And so when the spirit of the feminine that is inherent in the rivers, is subjugated, is molested, is raped, or is murdered, or is dismissed as insignificant, like what we see so often in terms of gender-based violence. It means when we're doing this to the feminine, we are blocking the energy of the river. And when we block the energy of the river, we're blocking the transport from all those still salient water sources all the way to the mother, to the ocean. So, when we desecrate and we pollute and dam the rivers, we block the ability of the girl child to channel the wisdom of the river and thus bring healing to society, as was known in our African principles, is that the girl child was, especially the virgin girl child, was incredibly inherent in the healing of society. We block the potential of our own reflection to traverse the myriad contours of the earth, because this feminine river source, this feminine spirit, is the one who creates the song that reminds us all of our essence, that reminds us all of our destiny, and that reminds us all of who we are. So in our African indigenous wisdom, we are asked not to focus only on what we see in front of it, but we are asked through the spirit of the river to focus on the spaces in between and the contours around it. So we see from this that if we have any sources of wounding or pathology in society, it might be due to the natural, the fracturing of the natural order of things, the desecration of that same Ubuntu that is flown through Kasamambezi River, Ma'at, the laws of love, of harmony, of truth, of interdependence, of interconnectedness, of interrelatedness. And we realize that in how we treat our water sources, how we treat our rivers, our dams, our lakes, our springs, we all become complicit in the wounding, because we are complicit in the wounding of ourselves as well as those who carry these waters. And as much as we are complicit in the wounding, we also all carry with us, with the waters, the power to heal. And so from this, we know that, and it's prescribed by the Hantu aspect of Ubuntu or quantum physics, is that we have within us, through the waters, the power to heal space, to heal time. And all of this power is unfortunately diminished if we do not allow the waters or the rivers to flow or to be. So, according to our proverb, you cannot do without water, even if it drowned your child. We've said that the oceans are the mother, or Set, and we see that she is the one who brings forth the child, who conceives the child through the amniotic fluid, which is also saline, and it gives birth to the child, even if eventually the child will drown in the waters, which will carry that child into the never-ending realms of Nut, which is also the primordial waters, which is also feminine in nature. But we also know that from our cosmology that the freshwater aspects of water are carried by the surrogate, Heteru, Marimba, the joyous one, or Shun, and through this she allows all our creativity and innovation. And together with these water sources, we have the power to heal and to bring forth life. And so when Queen Nzinga, was in Angola and she was bringing forth peace and great, victory in that country. She was a warrior mother carrying the principles of Oset, and she was a surrogate warrior mother carrying the principles of Heteru. And so we call on these waters today because we're seeing, for instance, the latest in terms of the Russian invasion on Ukraine. And what we know about war is that war is inherently masculine and it is inherently fire-based, according to our African cosmology or other indigenous cosmologies. It is a principle of the masculine warrior type. And the only one who can circumvent that masculine warrior type when it goes out of harmony and stops its protective function and instead brings forth war is the feminine. And so water is needed not only to heal, but water, the principle of water, is needed to bring forth peace that is inherent after the war. Because water is a shapeshifter. Water can take on an earthly form at 0 point. It can be as hard as a rock at 0 degrees. Water can take on the form of air, when it goes forth in steam at boiling point. Water can be fluid, but water can also burn if you're ever hit by a waterfall, as the fires. So this inherently mutable element is a vital element, not only to the functioning of our human bodies, but also to the sustenance of the planet and the sustenance of society as a whole. So yes, you cannot do without water, even if it has drowned your child, because ultimately it will birth a new child.
Gogo. This is a class, Gogo. This is a class that this is a curriculum that we've actually been conducting here every Thursday. Because every time you speak, I feel that's an entire lesson that you teach African history, you teach about colonization, you teach about the feminine energy and how it's applicable not only in our own bodies, but in the situation in Russia and Ukraine. And this proverb is what is eliciting this beautiful conversation that we're having here. So thank you, Gogo, for your wisdom. I want to go to the next question, but so I'll give you an idea what it is so that you can maybe grab it, and then I will jump into just listening to our audience members for a moment. But just quickly, for those who are joining us on YouTube, thank you very much. If you're watching this now, I am just so grateful. Remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Remember to share the link to the YouTube channel, particularly this video, with your community members. And also remember to push the thumbs up button so that when we are live, YouTube notifies you that the Daily African Proverbs is going on. Now, for the Clubhouse side of things, I want to encourage you to ping in 3 to 5 people to join us for this beautiful conversation. Remember, you can also clip this room, share it on Twitter, share it within Clubhouse, and also follow the African Father in America Club. And if you are already following the club, nominate 3 to 5 people to join the club. Now, Gogo, I want to ask you to please share with us in a moment, once we hear from our beautiful friends and family who are in the on stage on Clubhouse with us. I would love for you to share with us who Credo Mutua is, and also if Credo Mutua was still around today, what would you think about this proverb from Angola? Again, the proverb says, you cannot do without water, even if it drowned your child. So Gogo, before you share that, I just quickly want to give a moment to our speakers on stage, and also I want to let everyone in the room know that I'm going to turn off hand raising in just 2 minutes. So this is a good time for you to join us on stage if you'd like to lend your voice to this beautiful conversation. I want to go all the way to Bibi. Bibi, share with us where you are joining us from, what you think about the conversation we are having with Gogo Rutendo Ngara, and also what today's proverb from Angola means to you. The proverb again says, you cannot do without water, even if it drowned your child.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Gogo. Hi, Sister Tess. Hi, Mala Census. Oh my goodness. This is like you said, it truly is a class, and majority of these things that I'm relearning today, these are things that I knew growing up, but it's great to have a refresher and some things about water. I learned it from here in high school as well, and it's amazing. And as far as the proverb goes, water is life. And as far as we go back to the beginning about the new moon today, I'm gonna use that with my own experience. And I guess my daughter is going to decide to come in with the new moon, because I really thought she'll be here with the full moon last month, but she decided not to. And that goes back to our proverb today. It's like some things we have no control over. And I've been very frustrated because it's like, I'm like, come on, dude, we've been here for so long. You've cooked enough. It's time for you to come back. I mean, to come out. But yeah, she's gonna be here on her own time, and that's just something that I have to let the control thing go, and just let my body prepare its days for her arrival, and just and let it go. And that's just like water too. It's like even if we we do wrong by water, or water does what we don't appreciate, like drowning our child, we can be wrong. We can be wrong or cry about it, because it's like, I mean, we did leave the child to drown, so it's like, but that's just part of life, and it is our life. It's what keeps us alive, and we have no control over it. It has more power and control over us. So that's just my take. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome, baby. Thank you again for your contribution and your presence. Fred, how are you doing today? Where are you joining us from? And what are your comments on today's conversation and perspectives on today's proverb?
Good morning. Hopefully everyone is doing well. Calling from Ohio. Um, got a couple of personal experiences with this. When I was about 6 or 7, I almost drowned in the pool and was afraid of water for quite a long time. And later in my life, I ended up joining the Navy, which is nothing but water, careers on water. Um, and I'm looking at this situation as this proverb symbolism. You. The you part is your current state, present. Child is the past. Now, growing up in the church, dealing with Christianity, I kept reading these parables, these miracles, and what have you, and I kept seeing the aspect of water. And it didn't make sense based on the definitions that was given from the pulpit. So I had to do my reading, and I came up with, well, the symbol of water was presented to me as a situation caused by people. That definition has carried me through a lot of learning through life. When I'm talking with people, they may be dealing with a situation. I've had it up to here, or they feel like they're drowning in it. Well, what are they drowning in? The interaction with people. When a DJ is at a party playing music, and man, that party was flowing. Well, what was flowing? The music was out there, but there was the people interacting with it. they caused a situation. So when I look at the proverb that you cannot do without water, even if it drowned your child, past situations cannot be ignored, or you can't avoid them. You're still gonna have to go through them and learn from them. You're gonna have to embrace it. You're gonna have to grow from it because you're always gonna be dealing with people. A lot of people stay stuck with a past situation in life that might have drowned them. The situation caused by people, something in their childhood that might have hurt them, and they might not want to deal with people from that point on. But you can't do that because that's what life is about. It's about your existence and your interactions with people. That's how I see that proverb. You cannot you cannot do without water, even if it drowned your child. Past experiences cannot determine where you stand.
Thank you, Fred. This is Simon speaking. I got a phone call just when you are wrapping up, Fred. So I hope you can hear me. With Clubhouse, sometime if you get a phone call, your audio goes away. Bibi, can you tap your mic if you hear me? I just want to make sure. Excellent. Thank you. And thank you to everyone joining us on YouTube. It means a lot. We want to listen to all our audience members just quickly before we come back to Gogo, who is going to share with us, what Credo Mutua would say about, today's proverb. And also, Gogo is going to share with us, ways that you can support the work that she's doing. Now, Tess, how are you doing? Where are you joining us from? And what are your perspectives on today's proverb? And feel free to share any comments in regards to our time with Gogo Rutendo Ngara today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm joining from Vieira in Florida, Space Coast, and I'm doing very well, especially after listening to Gogo Tendongara speak. It's amazing. It's amazing how she speaks directly to my soul and how she mixes both science, which is, like the Western science, and then she weaves it with African history and also just what we are going through in life currently. I love how she does that. That being said, greetings to the room. Especially Beeb. I was really trying not to spook you today. Yeah, blessings to the little one coming in. They say there are no new souls entering the planet right now. So blessings to you, mother, and blessings to the little one. So when it comes to water, it says you cannot do without water, even if you drowned your child. Water, as we all know, is life. And sometimes it makes me wonder if water is alive. The way scientists believe that as water travels, it picks up and stores information from all the places it has traveled through. And we all know that the large bodies of water, have a lot of living beings. And I'm sure it picks up on that information as well, and it stores it because water does have memory. That's just the nature of water. And so when you think about it, every time you interact with water, be it drinking it, be it touching, you're interacting with all of that memory. You're interacting with all that information, with all those living beings that have passed through water, because water recycles itself. It's in the air, then it's on land, then it's in the sea, then it's in the body, then out of the body, and it just keeps going. And that is a lot of memory. And in as much as water is life, if it's carrying also organisms or information or memory that is harmful, hence when you drink water that is not purified or water that is not clean, it can also drown you or pretty much unalive you. And so it makes me very, I'm looking for a word. The word is disappearing. But it makes me want to believe more and more the importance of structuring our water. When you structure your water, you energize it. I know I do mine by using VOMAG, which is vortexing and magnetizing it using the flow of life and crystals. It's very important to do that. Otherwise, you're literally storing in your body all that memory and all that information that water has picked up through its travels. So, water is life, yes, but at the same time, water can be non life. My name is Tess, and that's all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Tess. I just appreciate your perspectives as well. And I also just want to add that because you're probably familiar, you and Steve are the ones who are probably familiar with what I'm about to say. There is the Legio Maria sect. You know, Legio Maria is like an independent African church. And, once you get to a certain rank of that, that many people call it a cult, but it's not a cult. It's an African spiritual movement. Once you get through a certain, level, they give you a bottle of water that you travel with, and you literally bless people anywhere you go. And I remember one time I was in primary school in Kenya, and one of these Legio Maria members was on his bicycle, and we had actually escaped from school. Sometime we were truant. We would go to school, we would leave home, go to school, then leave school right after the parade. After in the morning we had assembly, so after the assembly we would just go and walk around town. Then we met this Legio Maria guy who was literally chasing us around, pouring the water on us, and we would no matter where we would go, this guy was faster than us. That was one of the last times I escaped school. Anyway, so these guys, they are all over the world these days, but there's only one place where you can go and get the water that they use, and it's at this cave in Kisumu, where they normally go there for their pilgrimage. And it's just a special sight to behold. So if you are ever in Kenya, particularly in Kisumu, that's one of the places you should make sure you visit and, live with your bottle of water, because they bottle it for you and give it to you to go wherever you want to go with it. I once actually came back to Seattle with a bottle of water from there, and after months and months of having it, I had to get rid of it because it wasn't good anymore. But I just want to say that water is quite important, and what you're saying reminded me about the Legio Maria. Now I want to come to you, Sensors. Share with us your perspectives, and then we will continue on. Share with us where you're joining us from, your thoughts on the proverb, and also any comments in regards to our time with Gogo Rutendo Ngara. Thank you.
Hi, Simon. Hi, Gogo Rutendo and PB. Blessings are coming your way. So I'm sure you're excited about the bundle of joy that's coming into your household. Water. I find that there is peace in water. And as much as it can lead to people drowning, I always find peace being next to water. For some reason, beyond other elements. The other week, we had on the Africa Day Club a discussion on superstitions and beliefs. And one of the things that some of the contributors were saying was that they based on their culture, there is a water being, and apparently you are not supposed to go to the river very early in the morning. This is the River Nile. If you do, you will see this being, and when you come back from there, you don't tell people you've seen it. You just start singing, and people will know what you have encountered. And I found that across the different regions, one person from East said the same thing. Like there are all these different parts within these cultures. They call it different names, but it's all similar. And I just wanted to ask you if you can give expand on what do most of this uh, cultural beliefs, what do they really exactly mean about water? Is it the power itself? Is it that we carried over the my son, the Mama Wata system that they also have in West Africa? Or perhaps you will know better how to expand on it, and I just wanted to put that forward. In terms of the proverb, I remember they used to say, when you're in the water, don't fight it. Don't go against the current, because that's how you're going to drown. And so at the end, water is still, it's part of life. I see it as part of, I think it's when you also, for instance, suppress emotions and you think you can live without, you can stay alive without interacting with those emotions, and they end up killing you if you don't accept them as part of you and then move on with them. This is senseless and complete.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sensors. I truly appreciate your perspectives. You know, earlier on, Gogorutendo Ngara was speaking about the Nile being the longest river, and Sensors is from South Sudan, where that was the first place I was able to touch the Nile and travel, on the Nile for like an entire day. Maybe that's another story for another day, but thank you again, Sensors. Bees and bullets. I think this is Goddess. Goddess, how are you doing? And what are your perspectives on today's proverb from Angola? For those who are just joining us, the proverb says, you cannot do without water, even if it drowned your child. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everybody. Yes, this is me, Simon. I'm so grateful to be here with everybody. Today, I actually started listening on YouTube. It was such a blessing to see you and Gogo up there. Today, I really feel like the student sitting at the feet, and I'm just so grateful to
Hey,
be here.
Goddess, can you get closer to your mic? I just want to make sure we can hear you really loud and clear. Thank you so much.
Okay, I hope y'all can hear me better
It's
now.
so good. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Um, I was just saying that I was really grateful to be here with y'all this morning. Unfortunately, I have a similar experience to Fred. The first thing I think about being in elementary school, at camp, and being at Camp Courage and almost drowning in the pool. Um, Still to today, I still cannot swim, and that is something that makes me very uncomfortable. And Gogo did bring up systematic oppression, and it's kind of a reflection a little bit. There's a lot of Black people in America. Some of them call themselves African American, some of them don't, and we don't know how to swim. And it comes from back in the old days. Black folks who got caught with swimming skills, there was consequences for those type of people, and a lot of times Black folks, they didn't learn how to swim and they didn't teach their children how to swim. So it's almost like if someone in your family didn't teach you, or if someone didn't make it their business to make sure that you had classes or learned some other way, this is a skill that a lot of us don't have. And today, it just made me realize that I need to take it a little bit more serious. I remember also when I was a child, around that time, I remember always being really inquisitive, as I still am now. But I remember thinking, what is the strongest thing in the world? And I remember being really happy as a young scholar when I made my mind up that water was the strongest thing in the world. And I remember feeling like I had discovered something, and that is still the strongest thing in the world, in my thought process. And even though I don't know how to swim, I need to remind people, and I think it is my business to remind all of us that we need to spend more time in the water. whatever that looks like to us. As much time as we spend on land, we need to find a way to spend that time in the water. I also would like to end with this. I believe that one of my greatest lessons was from Bruce Lee when he told us to be like water.
That's
I
true.
land
I've
the
been
mic.
thinking about that all day. Bruce Lee was buried here in Seattle. He's a Seattleite. He's a Seattle legend. So, that quote is all over this city. Now, continuing on, I want to invite Tiff Countryman, who is an amazing, supporter of the Daily African Proverbs. But today, Tiff is hosting me for an interview at her club in regards to Rooted in Love, which is my book that is going to be available from March 7th. The ebook is already available. It's just $5.99 on Amazon, and you can grab it. But Tiff, what are your perspectives on today's proverb, the conversation we've been having so far, and feel free to talk about the session that we are going to have today.
Grand Rising, this is Tiff speaking. Thank you so much, Simon, for the introduction and for inviting me up to this stage, which is home to me and to so many others that have journeyed in here throughout the last year or so. And I'm so excited that this work is still a movement that is still alive, that is progressing forward. I'm so proud of you, Simon, for the consistency. I always praise you and honor you for your consistency and dedication to the work. Tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I have the honor of just having a conversation with my brother about his latest work, his book, Rooted in Love. And we'll have our other brother, Johnny, with us on stage, who will help also add value and contribute towards that conversation. The room is at the bottom of my profile. I'm not sure if Simon has any other room scheduled today, so it may be at the bottom of his profile too. If you all want to click it and then click on the bell so that it will send you a reminder once I open the room so that you can come in and vibe out with us and listen to the conversation and ask Simon some questions. We get to lean back and relax and get into his mind. Such a creative genius he is. And if you don't know, you better know. You can also check out his Instagram and all of the beautiful things that he's doing with One Vibe Africa and just all the things that Simon is doing and who he is. I'm so excited to be able to pick his brain and listen to what his soul has to share with us tonight. So I hope that you all will be able to join us. If not, the replays will be on. So you will definitely be able to go back and listen to the replay. When we look at the proverb today, you cannot do without water, even if it drowns your child. Okay, when I read this, it definitely touches me in a very a sacred way because I am a mother. I have only one child. God has blessed me with a beautiful daughter. She's 7 years old and she is a leader. She's a tiny human, is what I call her because she has so much wisdom and so much instinct. She's fearless. She's not afraid to jump. She asks the right questions sometimes at the wrong time, but she is someone that I know that will take life by the horns. And with that comes many dangers. I was looking at her body today. She has a scratch on her back from when she was learning how to swim at 2 years old. And she wanted to go ahead and jump in the water. And she ended up scraping her back. And that scar is still there. And then she has another scar on her leg when we had traveled to Jamaica for my birthday. Yes, I took my child on my birthday trip. Never do that. That was a horrible idea because I would spend time taking care of her instead of her having fun on my birthday. But it was beautiful nonetheless. But I do remember when we were in Jamaica and she was running through the sand and she fell and she slipped and she skid her leg on a shell, and that scar is still there. But one thing that I have always been very cautious of is her around water, even though I made sure that she had, swimming lessons and that she knows how to recover. Water is a movement, is a body, it's a natural resource. It has its own spirit, it has its own soul. It offers so much to us and it can take so much from us. It's the body that destroys cities and destroys the land, but yet is the one that keeps us alive because our own bodies are made of so much water. And even though we cannot avoid the inevitable, we still have control over what we manifest. And with water is so important because water is in everything. It literally gives us life and can provide us death. So we need something that can harm us, and something that can harm us is something that we need. I want to say this and then I'm going to give up the mic because I feel like I've had it for a long time. But sometimes we get upset about the disappointments, the backstabs, the people that do us wrong, the opportunities that we may have missed out on, or we feel as though we need to be around certain people or in certain circumstances. But the problem is that we don't understand the power of rejection. We don't understand the power of selection, because with that, we are able to learn so much and gain so much from it, so much wisdom, so much confidence. Although these terms have negative connotations, they offer so much positivity to our lives if we use it in the right way. What was meant to harm us can give us life, and meant to give us life can also harm us. Thank you so much, Simon, for this opportunity, and I cannot wait to vibe out with you and Johnny tonight. This is Tiff, and I'm done speaking.
Thank you, Tiff. I just appreciate your voice and your wisdom. Thank you for making the time to join us today. Deeply appreciated. And also, I have no other event but your event, today on my calendar. So to everyone who is here, join us at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the conversation with Tiff. Now, Kyle, how are you? Where are you joining us from? And what does today's proverb from Angola mean to you? It says, you cannot do without water, even if it drowned your child.
Namaste, everyone. I'm on Earth here, and it's where I'm calling from. And the other element is water. I love what I've heard from everyone thus far. It's, I know somebody who has lost their child to drowning, and I've been thinking about Bruce Lee as well, and so I'm happy that was brought up. Krishnamurti taught Bruce Lee quite a bit, so there's a flow. There's a flow, and the only other thing that I could think of other than food that that we truly need, I guess, shelter. We can do that for each other. Is love. You cannot do without love, even if it drowned your child. There's the people that Tiff was referring to, the haters, they're called, or whatever. It's just people that can't control their emotion. But there's that line, kill them with kindness, and it's love. Love isn't just something that we believe that we have. Love is something that is required to flow from our heart in order to actually transmit to another person, and that's I don't know of any greater flow of love than between a parent and their child, and their mother especially, for sure. It's generally how a lot of children learn to conceptualize what love is. I want to know what love is. Do do do. And I just I think that it's amazing. It's a powerful force, like water is. When we were looking at, if we were to look at hydraulics, for instance, hydraulics can lift and exert a great deal amount of force, and that's from that's from liquid, that could be from hydraulic fuel, but it also could be done from water. So the kind of force that we choose, and is often focused on our children, out of preservation for the people that we love the most. That force is love. And I was thinking about the quote, "God is love." and how that's really we can preach all we want about God or about love, but unless we actually transmit that force of love to another, it's not really ever understood. And yeah, so that's kind of just what came through my mind and flowed through my mind. The other thing I thought of was a flow state, which is very fascinating, and there's some psychology behind it as well. I won't go in deep into that, but I love your rooms, Simon, and I love everything that I heard from everyone thus far. So thank you so much for having this room.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much for being here with us today. Jay, how are you? And what are your perspectives on this proverb? Then from there, we'll hear from Flamingo and come right to you, Gogo Rutendo Ngara, to to give us just a quick summary of what you heard, and also share with us the perspectives of Credo Mutua, and then we'll close our session today. Jay, the mic is yours.
Thank you, dear brother. And I did tap the bell very quickly, Sister Tiff. How long is the room? Because I know I'll have to come in a little late. How long is it this afternoon? Okay, I'll just come in.
I'm sorry, I was
How
off
long?
screen. It's as long as Simon has time.
Okay,
I
great.
know it'll definitely be an hour, at the very least.
Okay, thank you so much, sister. Thank you. As Tiff was speaking, I just went check, 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 check. It's in terms of my understanding of this proverb. And the first thing that came to mind was that water is so calming and soothing, relaxing, peaceful. People like to have water views. We like to take a bath in water. Water, you're born of water. You're baptized in water. The scripture says that Christ is life-giving water. But water also can be destructive and terrifying. And so water needs to be respected as a giver of life and as a taker of life. We cannot live without it, regardless. Thank you so much. This is Jay, and I'm finished speaking.
Thank you so much, Jay. I am grateful for your contribution as well. Flamingo, how are you? And what are your perspectives on today's proverb from Angola? Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me to the stage, Simon. This was beautiful. Even though I wasn't planning on speaking since I'm a little busy, I just wanted to come up and share my medical perspective. Water is important in medicine. When we have patients, the first thing we do is assess and make sure that they're well hydrated. We have so many combinations of water and electrolytes. Water is for cleansing wounds. It's used for hydrotherapy, to manage pain. It's just the center of our patient care. So I'm so moved by what everybody said. And I just wanted to come up and say, once again, thank you for creating this space. And I'm speaking.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your contribution as well, Flamingo. I do want to quickly give a shout out to all our guests. I know that there are quite a few people joining us for the first time. Meke, El Rey, thank you for being here. And of course, Makuba and Ella and Anna and JM and Joseph, you're all welcome to the Daily African Proverbs. And now, for those who don't know, we've been hosting Gogo Rutendo Ngara every Thursday for quite some time now. And one of the things that I love is that when we have Gogo Rutendo Ngara, she's also able not just to share her interpretation of the proverb and her perspectives, but also to bring the perspective of Credo Mutua. So Gogo, share with us, when you think about this proverb, you cannot do without water, even if it drowned your child. What would Credo Mutua say about it?
Thank you so much, Simon. And I think before I go into Credo Mutua, I'm just really amazed and grateful for all the contributions that have come into this discussion from everybody. It's just amplified and magnified the spirit of water, whether it is about how water teaches us as a metaphor to let go, or whether, as Fred showed us, that water, he was able to go through transformation. So water is a transformative force, from being afraid of drowning to going into the Navy. I think it's so beautiful, but also just that water is the ultimate element that tells us about how everything is interconnected, interrelated, and interdependent. And I think so many people spoke to this, which is the principle of Ubuntu here. It is the ultimate element that flows through, showing us that interdependence of Ubuntu. And as we heard from Tess, it is also linked with memory, and all living beings. And so it's that agent that interconnects us and interrelates us and interdepends us with all living beings. You spoke about the cave, with the sacred water, and here we have so many spaces, certainly here and in Southern Africa, with the sacred waters, which are used, in various forms. So there will be a different form for this, water taken from the ocean, will be used differently from water taken from a spring, a hot spring, to water taken from a cold spring, to water taken from this river or from that lake, because they all have their elements, they all have their essence, the spirits that engage in the different bodies of water all have particular attributes, which here in African, cosmology and, culture we acknowledge. But also, I think a big thing that came out of this topic is that water does not subscribe to dichotomy, and dichotomy is very inherent in a very kind of Western dominant view. Water is neither good nor bad. Water just is. It is all that is. So it can give life, and it can also, take life. But it is not unipolar. It can, as it takes, it also gives, and we understand this double polarity of it. And when we see this, we also look into, lots of people spoke about drowning or almost drowning. And here, certainly in Southern Africa, we acknowledge a particular kind of water spirit that often leads to what is perceived as drowning. And this particular spirit, actually what it has said is that it takes you deep underwater so that it can teach you the gifts of healing. And that if you cry when somebody is taken underwater in order to give forth the gifts of healing, that person will end up drowning. So it is about learning to trust that particular spirit. And there's a whole long, sitting around a tree around those particular kinds of spirits. They're called Njuzu in Africa, in Zimbabwean cosmology. But also what we know, from when we understand these, water spirits, or the way they're described by our African ancestors, a lot of the times they were actually describing very scientific phenomena. So today I spoke about the river Kasamambezi, or known as the Zambezi. And what happened in the 1960s in Zimbabwe is that, the Western colonialists at the time started building what is now known as Kariba Dam, in order for hydropower. And the Tonga elders kept imploring them, that the right rituals had to be done to the great spirit of Nyami Nyami in order before, they could build this. And of course, it was all discarded as superstition and these backward people, and they do not know anything about science. There's no such thing as a water spirit in the Kasamambezi. And eventually what happened was that there was and they kept saying, look, what you're doing by building this wall is you're separating the masculine Nyami Nyami with its wife, the feminine, and you're not allowing the order of nature to continue. And of course, this was dismissed as mambo jumbo. And eventually what started happening as the dam wall was built up, was that earthquakes, started taking place. And at first there were minor tremors, and the elders, who were, mind you, in order for the building to take place, they were all displaced. They were all evicted from being custodians of that river, both on the Zambia side and the Zimbabwe side. And when the tremors started happening, the elders, kept saying, "Look, you're disturbing the natural flow, and now the husband cannot get to his wife, and that's why there are these tremors." Once again, it was discarded as mumbo jumbo superstition. Eventually, when there was an earthquake that killed, I think, about 80 people, did the scientists and the colonial powers go back to these elders to say, "Oh, by the way, those rituals you spoke about," eventually the elders, then perform certain rituals, and since then, those tremors, especially to that scale, have not taken place. And so what we start to see is that even though they were using this metaphor of the nyami nyami needing to get to the other side of the river to get to his wife, they were all actually speaking about plate tectonics and the disturbance of tectonic activity, in that region, due to this building of this dam, which the geologists had not taken into consideration, thus bringing about these, these earthquakes. So we need to listen very deeply to understand the language that our ancient elders, our African elders, are speaking about, because often they're speaking highly scientific language, just with metaphors that unfortunately those who are of the Western paradigm did not understand. And then just what Goddess spoke to about Black people not knowing how to swim, and this is our original state is swimming. We are conceived in and we then are in the amniotic fluid, and we are originally in water before we're birthed into this space. And so that's the consequences of being taught to swim, which we also find here in Africa as well, where we find, I remember being at university by the ocean, and lots of people saying, why should we be here? Black people don't know how to swim. So it is also found here, was to take us away from that original state, which is as those who are one with water. We are one with water. We are water. And, by disturbing the apartheid between the person and the water, it is an apartheid from our original state. And of course, this is what Bruce Lee would have said when he said, "Be like water," and I think I have mentioned that I have, studied, done Kung Fu, for a very long time. And, and when, we actually, engage in Tai Chi, the softer form, the more feminine form, ultimately what we have to be is water. And what we find is that when you engage in this, it is the most potent martial art, far more potent than a more fiery, aspect. So when Bruce Lee told us this, he was really saying, get back to your original nature, your original state, which is the state of water. And when we have that original state, and maybe I can just say one thing, is that Bruce Lee, he when he came to the West, he used the term kung fu, or gung fu, and gung fu is not actually the term, that is used for that particular martial art. It's actually wushu, and wushu, when we really break it down, means the art of stopping war, which is what being like water. Kung Fu, we can be a Kung Fu master of anything. It is hard work. Kung Fu is hard work, in order to master a discipline. So anybody can be a Kung Fu master. And when we learn how to cultivate this, we know that water can either be as still and gentle, as peaceful as we have heard, but it can also become a tsunami, which can drown out not just your child, but many, many children. So yes, something that can harm is also something that we need, and we need to learn this two-way form, this bipolarity of water, because there's no dichotomy. All that is, as we've said, we've heard, it is both a giver and a taker of life. I don't know if I have time to just read a little bit from Credo Mutwa, but what I can say about what he would say is, he always speaks about the feminine way. And when we read his book, Indaba My Children, and he goes into how creation was came about. It sounds like a big mythological story, but when you really read into it, you see that it is actually a highly scientific rendition of how creation came about. And the principal creatress is the feminine goddess Ma, and as part of her, creating, she cries many tears, and these tears are what become our oceans and our lakes and our rivers, and it is because of the feminine tears that we have all of life. So that's what you'd say in a nutshell, and when we have more time, I'll be able to read more in terms of what that passage is.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Gogo. Thank you so much for your amazing work, for your incredible contributions today. And I do want to ask you if if there's any way that those who are watching and listening can support your work. If there's a specific thing you want to direct us to, this is a good opportunity for you to share that before we wrap up our conversation today.
Today I spoke, thank you so much, Simon. Today I spoke about the Tonga people, and how the Tonga people are some of our First Nations, people here in the South, some of our oldest living ancestors. And I know you dropped into a memorial we were having yesterday for one of our Batwa, our San elders, one of what we call the last lion shamans of the Kalahari, who carried so much knowledge, inherent in, he was from the desert where there is no water, very little water, but, the San people have an incredible ability to adapt, and they adapted, with the knowledge of adaptability that is inherent in our inner waters. And so we do a lot of work with, such communities where there's dying knowledges, and dying indigenous knowledges, which we know hold many clues to many of the problems that we have today, simply because, as I've said, our indigenous elders understood the deep sciences of our times, but they just explained it in a language that we, with our modern understanding, have not been able to understand. So supporting some of our work with Ancient Wisdom Foundation, well, that's one organization, and Earthrise, where we seek to support indigenous communities and indigenous knowledge systems, and valorize it and legitimize it and protect it in such a way that it can assist us today in order to bring forth a future for our youth and for the babies that we heard, are coming in, so that they can find a world, that's worthy of being in, and that they can also, as Bruce Lee said, be like water.
Thank you, Gogo. Thank you. I definitely feel that every time we have we have you as our special guest, I learn. We peel off a new layer about you, and today the new layer is your martial arts skills. You might have mentioned it earlier on, but now I will feel secure when I meet you in person. I will know that nobody can mess with me. I'm just joking. Anyhow, thank you for your continued support. For those who joined us on YouTube, thank you again for your continued support. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel, and make sure you share the link to the channel with your community members so that we can continue building our presence on YouTube. And to everyone who is here with us on Clubhouse, first, thank you, Delano, for joining us, and Lucrece, and Kesiwa, Johnny, of course, and everybody else who took the time to join us for these last moments of our session. Thank you. And all the speakers on stage, thank you so much. Remember to follow the African Father in America Club if you're not following the club yet. And if you are, nominate 3 to 5 people to join the club as well. With that, we've come to the tail end of our conversation, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day or evening, depending on where you are. And Gogo, thank you so much. Have a nice evening. Thank you so much.
African Father in America. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. Tujikaze, tujikaze, jikaze. African father in America.
You are listening to African Father in America podcast by Simon Javan Okello, live from Seattle, Washington, USA.